afternoon, everyone. I'm Issa Baza here at the Superior Court. So moments ago, Judge Michael Bordallo read the sentence for former police officer Mark Torre Jr. The deputy marshals are opening the doors to the courtroom, so we're expecting some of the family members to start walking out any minute now. Again, Mark Torre Jr. was sentenced to 8 years in prison, also a $3,000 fine. We have some of the Piolo family exiting now. John. These are members of the Piolo family exiting the courtroom. His brother. The marshals are actually calling for the Piolo family to re-enter the courtroom. We just saw brother Edison, Albert Piolo's brother Edison, peek out, and so they are now re-entering the courtroom. We have yet to see anyone from Mark Torre Jr.'s family exit the courtroom. So again, this hearing started at roughly 9 a.m. this morning, so it's been over 2 hours. Several people took the stand. Half a dozen people took the stand. Okay, so just coming in, defense attorney Jay Ariola asked for a release pending appeal. That motion has yet to be filed, and the court will entertain a motion, but the new reporting date just issued now is July 14th. So Mark Torre Jr. must report to jail by July 14th next month. And again, he received a total of 8 years. We're now waiting for the families of both Mark Torre Jr. and Albert Piolo to exit the courtroom. There's still something going on inside. Really, there was some really heart-wrenching testimony today. Our Nick Delgado was actually in the courtroom, and he was sending us some of the testimony from the family members that went up. Of course, Albert Piolo's wife, Mika Piolo, went up and said, quote, "No one knows the pain I feel, the darkness that hides behind my smiles." And she expressed, her pain over the discussions over their marriage during the lengthy trial. The trial was over 2 weeks long. Also, Albert Piolo's oldest son took the stand and also cried as he began to read a message that he wrote for his dad the day he found out the news. And here's Nick Delgado. Pass it over to you, Nick. With more.
Yes, 8 years.
Right, Issa. So as you heard from Issa here, just moments ago we heard the total that Mark Torre Jr. has been sentenced in the shooting death of his fellow officer Albert Piolo is 8 years with a total of $3,000 fine. Very emotional moments now for the Torre family. You see, I saw Mark Torre Jr. Being comforted by his wife, Julia, just there as they're all in the pews and waiting to make their way out of the courtroom after that ruling. It took a lot of emotional testimony and moments here from both sides, from Mark Torre Jr., who asked for some leniency of the judge, from Lieutenant Mark Torre, his father, who also testified that despite what happened, his son is a good man. And then we also heard from the Piolo family, who said that they, of course, understandably miss Bert Piolo, and it's definitely been a hard time each time they had to bring it up again about just the tragic incident that happened on July 2015. And so right now we are waiting for the Torre family to make their way out first, and then the Piolo family will make their way out of the courtroom, hoping to get some reaction and just hear what they have to say following the news. But again, Mark Torre Jr., who was convicted 3 months ago of negligent homicide, aggravated assault in the 3rd degree, plus the 2 special allegations of use of a deadly weapon in the commission, possession, use of a deadly weapon in the commission of felony, has been sentenced to 8 years in prison. And I wanted to show you around. This is the Superior Court atrium area. You see just how high profile this case is. The security definitely heightened for an event just like this. You see deputy marshals for the court here at the ready in case anything should happen. But of course, that's what they're here for, to ensure the safety of all the families and all the occupants here at the court. Let's go this way right now, where we see Lieutenant Torre.
On behalf of the defendant, Mark Torre, we were certainly disappointed, very disappointed in the sentence handed down today. The judge was well within his authority to render that sentence. However, he was just as well within his authority to suspend any sentences as the law provides in a case like this. The sentence was disparate in terms of others similarly convicted of similar crimes. And of course, Mr. Torre will certainly be filing his appeal at the appropriate time. Thank you all.
Anything you want to say, Mark, to?
Thank you. Thanks all. If you could allow us, please.
Definitely a hard moment there you saw from Defense Attorney Jerry Piolo, who expressed his sincere and utter disappointment with today's verdict. Again, Mark Torre Jr., the former cop accused of killing his fellow officer, convicted in the shooting death of Officer Bert Piolo, expressing his disappointment with the judge's sentencing today. Mark Torre Jr. sentenced to 8 years in prison. He actually will remain under house arrest and does not have to report to DOC until July 14th at 6 p.m. So now that we heard just the reaction immediately following that sentencing from the defense, let's hear what prosecutors have to say as they asked for the max. They asked for 28 years. That's how long that Torre had faced with all the charges that he was convicted of: negligent homicide, aggravated assault in the third degree, plus the 2 special allegations. So now that that 8-year sentence has been rendered, the Piolo family making their way out from Judge Michael Bordallo's courtroom. Right now, Ms. Geraldine Piolo, the mother of Bert, Ms. Piolo, you're asking for the max sentence as well. Your reaction to the 8-year sentence?
Well, it's better than nothing. That's what I'm going to say. We cannot just, whatever the decision is, we just follow whatever.
Do you feel that justice was served for your son?
A little bit, but we're not really satisfied.
Will you be filing any civil action?
Oh, we still don't know. We have to be, we have a meeting with the family.
Prior to that, we have, closed.
Where are you guys headed now?
Phil.
Sorry.
So there we heard from Geraldine Piolo. That was Officer Bert Piolo's mother, who testified an emotional testimony as she went up first for the prosecution, saying that, she was pushing for the max punishment, 28 years for former cop Torre Jr., but what she heard was the 8-year sentence, and she said it's better than nothing. Of course, that their fight, we heard from her as well, will go on as they plan to seek restitution and take other litigation against what happened here today. Let's see if we can speak with more and get more reaction. We're waiting to hear from Chief Prosecutor Phil Tidingo, who presented to the court that he wanted the 28 years max punishment as well as Torre Jr. Again, Torre Jr. only getting that 8-year sentence ruling made by Judge Michael Bordallo here just moments ago. Along with that 8-year sentence in prison, he'll also have to pay a $3,000 fine. And following that, upon his release, we also learned that the judge coming back into the courtroom telling us that he will be served 3 years on parole, depending on what happens down the line during his time served at the Department of Corrections. Torre Jr. will remain under house arrest, as I mentioned earlier, and will not have to report to the prison until July 14th at around 6 p.m. But at this point, we know that Torre Jr., who was convicted in the shooting death of his fellow officer Bert Piolo, sentenced to 8 years in prison, ordered to pay a $3,000 fine, then will serve 3 years on parole. But for now, we're waiting to get more reaction from the government to see what they have to say to today's sentencing. And Issa, if I could just ask, how was the feel and the mood outside the courtroom as many were waiting for that sentencing?
Well, people were waiting out here for a couple hours, just patiently waiting, talking quietly with each other. We also saw some people coming in and out of the courtroom in tears throughout the testimony, so it was a pretty solemn and
I know it's a lot more security out here as well. Talk a little bit about that, and were you hearing anything as that was going on?
Just, we saw a lot of court marshals monitoring this area, the atrium. Also, security was tightened as we entered through the doors to the Superior Court. Usually it's pretty quick. They look through, all of your stuff goes through the security cameras, but today they had an extra step. They really looked through everyone's belongings and patted everyone down just to make sure that this event was secure for whole family.
So again, just to recap, if you're just joining us now, we've been following this and bringing you the live tweets. If you want to take a look at those live tweets right now, the Twitter handle at KUAM News, all morning long we've been bringing you the testimony that has been coming out from the courtroom during today's sentencing of Mark Torre Jr. Mark Torre Jr. A few minutes ago walking out of the courthouse just as he did during the verdict, not saying much and letting his attorney speak on his behalf. This time, his attorney J.R. expressing his utter disappointment with today's sentencing, as he was asking no jail time. And so right now we're waiting to hear from the chief prosecutor as well to hear what the government has to say about this case.
Also, people waiting here, there was a quick break in between, right before the sentencing, and a lot of people waiting. You can see them hugging the family members of Mark Torre Jr., also the family members of Albert Piolo. So a lot of solidarity and support from their friends and family here in the courtroom. And of course the Piolos, the Torres did leave, but the Piolos are currently meeting with Chief Prosecutor Phil Tidingo. So we should have more on from them later on today.
So if you remember, there are also some testimony given today from Geraldine Piolo, the mother of Bert Piolo, saying there's no way that argument of Torre suffering from an alcohol-induced blackout, that being said from Edison, the brother as well, that's no way that could have happened, despite what the defense had argued during trial.
Let's talk about what Torre said on this one.
Right, of course, Torre asking for leniency before the judge. He also expressing he expressed a mood of being apologetic towards the Piolo family, of course. But then in closing arguments, Chief Prosecutor Phil Tidingo, he then expressed how it doesn't appear that Torre showed any remorse, that he wasn't showing any sincere remorse or regret for what had happened, despite Torre saying that he did everything and did the best he could to try and save Bert's life on July 2015.
So this is what Hugh had sent us while you were in the courtroom. He was sending us updates throughout the testimony. So from Mark Torre Jr., one of his quotes says, "I'm so very sorry about Bert's death. I would never intentionally, recklessly, or accidentally hurt Bert. He was my brother, my friend, my comrade, and my fellow officer." Torre Jr. said, "Bert's death will haunt me for the rest of my life." So those were his words from earlier this morning.
And so, were you able to speak with any of the family members as well outside?
They weren't really saying much. They were just sitting and waiting. Most of Albert Piolo's family were inside. There were a few sitting here on the left of the H row, and then Mark Torre Jr. family on the right. But I didn't get a chance to speak to them too much.
Yeah, definitely emotional moments from beginning to end. This all started around 9 o'clock this morning here at the Superior Court of Foreman had gotten in. Mark Torre Jr., right after that sentencing came down and the judge gave families time to spend with one another, and we could see Mark Torre Jr. with his wife Julia comforting one another right there in the courtroom. Some shedding tears, some expressing their grief, and as you heard from Attorney General, his disappointment with that 8-year sentence for Mark Torre Jr.
What about the Piolos from their side? What was the mood like after the sentence?
So after the sentence was read, surprisingly, there was not much of a reaction in terms of anyone shouting out or expressing some loud emotion following what the judge had given for Mark Torre Jr. But we did hear from Attorney Jerry as well in the courtroom following that sentencing that he does plan to file a motion to appeal this sentencing, again, because he wanted his client to get 0 jail time. So again, Mark Torre Jr., he faced negligent homicide, charges of negligent homicide, aggravated assault in the 3rd degree, plus the 2 special allegations of use and possession and use of deadly weapon in the commission of a felony. We've been following this since 2015, and so a lot has transpired since then. So the public definitely waiting to find out whether the saying that we've heard all those years, justice for Bert, is actually coming to fruition. And when I asked that question of Ms. Geraldine Piolo, the mother of Bert, she pretty much said that it's something. It's better than nothing, and that their fight will go on.
And it was a little bit different from the reaction when the verdict was first read earlier this year. I know that the family members expressed a lot of they were upset, some anger, frustration with, Bert Piolo not being found, or Mark Torre Jr. not being found guilty of murder and manslaughter. So he got off the more serious charges. And
he was acquitted of those.
Yes, and was only found guilty of negligent homicide, assault, and a few other things, less serious.
Aggravated assault, correct. Real quick, we want to, while we wait for the Chief Prosecutor Phil Tydenko, he did say, again, in the courtroom, clearly Torre Jr. has no remorse during his closing arguments. He continues to deny his responsibility. He could have prevented this tragedy, and he's the cause of the tragedy, yet he denies it. Tydenko also said he sent a message. We need to send this message to the community that police officers are not above the law and make tragic mistakes, and that they could have prevented a mistake. That's the word that the brother Edison Piolo, brother Albert Piolo, had mentioned. He said, "Why did you have to put us through all this for these past couple of years when you could have just fessed up and admitted to the mistake that occurred when his brother had passed?" Some other things that were mentioned in the courtroom was by Defense Attorney Jariella, who said that it's obvious his client did not intentionally use a firearm. He was acquitted of intentional use of a firearm. And then he also requests that the court impose the minimum fine and no jail time, citing a law that refers to this case, saying that the defendant comes before the court with no prior record. He is a father of one with another on the way. He also spoke highly about his upbringing, his time in GPD SWAT and on the police department, the son of a GPD officer as well, GPD lieutenant, and someone who served in the National Guard and in the military as well.
And did they also submit some letters on his behalf?
Right, and so the family and friends, there were 100+ letters pretty much testifying in support of Torre. So pretty much, again, requesting that leniency on his behalf.
Another one of the witnesses, the 4th witness to go up today, or to testify, was Albert Piolo's cousin Christine Duncan. And so this is the quote that Nick sent us while he was in the courtroom listening. She said, quote, "He lived life to the fullest. The only problem is it was taken away by Mark Torre Jr., and that's from his cousin Christine. She's a chief petty officer in the Navy and questioned why Torre would even carry his gun while out drinking, saying, quote, he knows alcohol and firearms do not mix. Accountability is the key word here. If we don't hold him accountable for his actions, then what messages are we sending to the public?" And so she's also, like the rest of the Piolo family, asked for the max sentencing, which would have been 28 years.
Yeah, and also Defense Attorney Jariella in closing arguments, he did say he did pretty much go up in the defense of his client. Obviously, he's saying he will rehabilitate. He already has. He will continue to rehabilitate, and so that's something that Judge Bordallo said he already notices from Torre. But again, the prosecutor is saying that he has yet to show any remorse because he continues to deny even having shot her back in July 2015.
And defense attorney J.R. also added that he contends that defendant Mark Torre Jr. didn't intentionally use a firearm. He said he was acquitted of intentional use of a firearm, and so that was one of the reasons why he was requesting the minimum sentence. And so he also did mention that he had rehabilitated and also has a family.
Let's break down this 8-year sentence, though. There are a lot of numbers being thrown around and a bit of confusion at first, but I think we were able to clear it up. Just 8 years, the 8-year sentence was broken down by the charges. First up, the negligent homicide charge, which the judge said, I'm going to render that sentence at 3 years in prison with all but 2 years being suspended. For the special allegation charges, he set that at 6 years. And for the aggravated assaults at 3rd degree, he set that at 3 years with all but 2 years suspended as well. And so those are all the judge said to run consecutively altogether, totaling up to that 8-year sentence. And the fines, of course, he separated as well between $2,000 and $1,000 for the lesser charges, but it all totals up to a $3,000 fine that Mark Torre Jr. Will have to pay to the courts. There's also the discussion of restitution and what's going to go towards the family. We know that the wife of Bert Piolo, Mika, who testified first today, she was seeking more than $1 million, he said, in this case. And so that filing has yet to be heard. But for now, Mark Torre Jr., he was able to walk out from the Superior Court today after today's sentencing and will remain under house arrest as far as we know, awaiting waiting further guidance.
Yeah. Check in with report to jail
July 14th at 6 p.m.
So he'll also have a parole of 3 years. That's something you heard.
Right, and so the judge had walked out of the courtroom following that sentencing, and then he walked right back in as everyone was getting ready to get back to get out of the courtroom. Just to clarify that, following his time served at the Department of Corrections, he would then serve 3 years on parole. And so that was something additional that he had added to today's sentencing for Mark Torre Jr.
Okay, so 8 years, 3 years parole, and he has almost three, a little bit more than 3 weeks before he's going to be checking in with the Department of Corrections.
Yeah.
So it's going to be probably an emotional few weeks for his family. And like it was mentioned in the courtroom today, he does have a baby on the way.
Yeah. And now the task is for the, I assume, the Department of Corrections to make those accommodations for Torre Jr. Obviously, when you have a high-profile case like this that involves a cop, you know, they can't just be put with general population. You would assume they can't just be put with general population with all that they've done to put some of those criminals behind bars. And so that's something that we will work to find out for you as well, on what the conditions will be like for Mark Torre Jr. once he does report on July 14th.
And I'm sure his attorney, Jay Ariel, will have something to say about that. The family members, when they were walking out of the courtroom, they didn't really say much. It was just the attorney, Jay Ariel, that made a statement on behalf of Torre. He didn't add anything more to his testimony when he was on the stand, and also but he was surrounded by his father, his mother, his family members, and they just walked out quietly without saying any further comments.
Yeah, I feel like they expressed, although it was emotional time in the courtroom, it gave them more time to think and ponder about what to expect from today's sentencing after what we saw during the verdict 3 months back. You know, they expressed a lot of anger and frustration from both sides of the family. So that was the emotion coming out from today's sentencing. Mark Torre Jr. sentenced 8 years in prison, a $3,000 fine. Does not have to report to the Department of Corrections until July 14th at 6 p.m. Until then, he'll remain under house arrest. we are seeing the Piolo family making their way back down here to the first floor, as well as the government chief prosecutor, Phil Tydinko. We're hoping to get his reaction as well. Let's see what he has to say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey guys, can we just get?
Okay.
So obviously there was the request not just from your office but from all who testified here today, the family members, the Piolo family, asking for the max punishment, 28 years in prison, but that he got 8. Your reaction?
Correct. So the battle here was between 0, as the court judge pointed out, where defense was trying to invoke the Justice Safety Valve Act, and our asking for the maximum. And so, as an officer of the court, I have to view this as a just and fair sentence. I certainly wish we could have gotten more for the sake of the family. I still think it sends a strong message to the community to trust the sentence here, that a police officer who is negligent in causing another fellow police officer his death with the use of a firearm will be held accountable through a prison sentence. And as you heard here, he was sentenced to a total of 8 years imprisonment. That's sentenced for 3 years, all but 2 suspended for the negligent homicide and the aggravated assault, and those. So that comes out to 2 years, and that runs concurrent. And then Torre was given 6 years out of the 5 to 25 for both the special allegations that run with the 2 crimes, and they run concurrent. However, that 6 years has to run concurrent to the 2, so you have 6 plus 2, and he must serve a total of 8 years. And so I think that's an important message to Officer Torre, or former Officer Torre, that he needs to be held accountable for his crimes. Because from where I was sitting, I don't believe he accepted responsibility, nor was he remorseful.
And you just got through speaking with the Piolo family. What was their mood like? What was their response?
They were somber. The thing I want to say about the Piolo family and all their supporters and those, they were very dignified. I mean, they, with much dignity, they poured out their heart, their sorrow, their loss, and even there was even some forgiveness from some of the members. And you have to hand it. These are true Guamanians. They, as they said, we made this our home, and they consider themselves Guamanians. And there is a trust issue, and I hope that this sentence will restore their trust and other people's trust with the Guam Police Department, as well as with the criminal justice system.
You don't think Mark Torre Jr.'s testimony was sincere?
No. Another question?
Do you know if the family will be seeking any civil damages?
I do not know anything about that. I'm with the prosecution. That's for a different kind of attorney.
What kind of message you're saying? You hope that this puts a message out there to the community.
Well,
and with this sentence, what is the message?
One of the takeaways, at least for me, is that as you heard, there was some mixed evidence and testimony about whether the police believe that their own regulations about carrying weapons and firearms and drinking alcohol. And I found that quite troubling and disturbing. I mean, we're one of those jurisdictions, we actually don't have a law that prohibits a person from being intoxicated and carrying a weapon. We prohibit you from driving while intoxicated, but we don't prohibit you from being intoxicated while carrying a weapon. And a police officer should be held to a higher standard of conduct. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Phil.
you.
All right, guys, so there you have it. We just heard from Chief Prosecutor Phil Tydinko. A quick recap that Mark Torre Jr., the former Guam police officer accused in the 2015 shooting death of fellow officer Bert Piolo, sentenced to 8 years in prison, ordered to pay a $3,000 fine, and will remain under house arrest until he has to report to the Department of Corrections. on July 14th at 6 p.m. So we will bring you the full comprehensive report from what happened inside the courtroom tonight on prime time. Thank you so much for following us here live on Facebook. Again, check out our live Twitter handle at KUAM News to take a look at this emotional testimony given from both parties. Issa Basil will have the full report of what happened outside, plus the reaction coming up tonight, KUAM News primetime at 6 p.m. For now, for Guam's News Network, Guam,